Hi viewers, I'm Zach Berly. Welcome to Carolina Forward Interviews, a series where we speak to our elected officials about the issues of today, the future of our state, and why it is that they do what they do. I'm here with Senator Mujtaba Mohammed, who represents District 38 in the NC Senate, which is Mecklenburg County. First of all, Senator, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Zach, and I appreciate Carolina Forward, the work that you're doing, and the interview.
So now, one of my favorite things to do is to kind of break it down. We kind of put up a wall amongst our politicians and assume you're different than the rest of us, but you're just a human like the rest of us. Now, can you tell us a little about your family, where you're from, your background?
Sure. So I'm one of the younger legislators in the North Carolina General Assembly. Majority of folks are seniors, have a very different background, independently wealthy or retired. I'm a public interest lawyer. I've been started out my legal career representing children at the Council for Children's Rights. I've been a public defender, representing the indigent. Of course, I have a beautiful family that lets me be in the North Carolina Senate and serve the people of Mecklenburg County. I've got 3 beautiful children, Ayub, Hamza, and my youngest baby girl, Amara, who was born during the veto override drama that people remember in 2019.
Wow.
And I was so concerned if I was going to miss her birth or not. Do I let my family down, or do I let the governor of the state of North Carolina down? So that was quite interesting. But that's a little bit of my background. I'm one of 4 Asian Americans now at the North Carolina General Assembly. Senator Chaudhry and I were the only Asian Americans from an Indian ethnicity background in the General Assembly. So it's an honor and privilege to serve the people of Mecklenburg County at the North Carolina Senate.
So now tell me, there has to be a reason you'd want to subject yourself to the craziness of politics. What made you decide to get into it?
Look, I've had a career representing children and families for the most part. And what I think about is, for the vast majority of folks that might probably listening to us today, you know how to advocate for your family or your children. Whether it's some people in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, across the state, but there's too many families and children that don't have advocates and people in their corner every single day in, day out. So I've been honored to be able to take my advocacy from the courtroom, from the classroom, the community, to the floor of the North Carolina Senate, to the committee room, and really taking a lot of their voices and their challenges of everyday people and doing my best to lead with convictions.
I love that. What issues would you say you're most passionate about?
Well, I think public education is one of the most important game changers that we have. What separates North Carolina from so many other states is our constitutional mandate to have a sound basic education for every child. And I think if we focus more on education as a state and made those investments in our kids and our educators, we can change their life. So education has always been a passion of mine. Access to healthcare, mental health care. I think those are important, life-changing tools that we can provide to people to take care of themselves and their community. And I've been able to make a lot of changes in our courts and our jails and our criminal justice system by focusing on a lot of great work in our Judiciary Committee as well.
Specifically with education, there seems to be kind of like a pathway for Republicans where you criticize the education system being public, you question the things that are being taught, you therefore defund the amount of money, or you don't raise pay for teachers, which therefore causes the public education system's quality to degrade. You see that in the state as well, where there's already discussion about teacher pay rise and whether that's a no-starter, and that's an issue right now that's going on. For yourself, I mean, how do you see that discussion continuing to evolve amongst a majority in both houses that don't really want to fund public education because they view it for whatever reason as being as an evil or inefficient or something like that? How is it for you to see that issue, that's something that's passionate to you, kind of be torn down?
Look, as an attorney that works in our justice system, I see the consequences of our failure for not funding our public education system. You know, in North Carolina, sadly, we're building more prisons instead of building people. And that's the focus, and that's why it's so critically important to invest in our children, investing in early childhood education from the very beginning, investing in our educators. I mean, these are state employees who are giving not only their life, their family time, they're giving everything that they've got to invest in North Carolina kids. And it's an absolute shame that we have to beg and plead for crumbs every single day at the North Carolina General Assembly, that educators have to come with marches and rallies and lobby legislators to do the basic thing. Take care of our most vulnerable, and that's our children. We can do better.
Now, I know that Medicare expansion has been a goal for Democrats in the state for a very long time. Haven't been able to get it done for a very long time. You're going to be able to say that you were a part of that push and that drive, and I know that's going to be massive for many, many people in this state. For yourself to be along for the ride, to see it go from maybe a hope into a success is something that's going to happen. How proud are you of that achievement?
Medicaid expansion is going to be life-changing for so many people across North Carolina. Medicaid expansion was the first bill that I was honored to co-sponsor when I first came to the North Carolina Senate in 2019. And now in 2023, to be able to vote for Medicaid expansion and actually pass out of the state Senate and now hopefully get to the governor's desk is honestly a dream come true. And sadly, the reality is there's been too many folks who've been waiting for that access to healthcare. We got almost 1 million people underserved. Now, to be able to get access to healthcare to over 600,000 people, that's going to be life-changing. I think it's important for folks to understand about Medicaid expansion is you could be one car accident away from potentially going bankrupt. You could be potentially going bankrupt from one diagnosis for cancer. This is about critically providing preventative care, mental health care to so many working families in North Carolina. And it's really bringing back our tax dollars back to North Carolina instead of sending it to other states. So it's a no-brainer. And I told my Republican colleagues it's fiscally irresponsible not to bring our tax dollars. So it's great to be able to see Medicaid expansion actually becoming a reality.
Your district is one of the most heavily Democratic seats in the state, in the chamber. And the legislature, of course, is firmly controlled by Republicans. For yourself, what is it like managing that disparity between a district that varies so much from the state level of representation as far as Republicans go?
Sure. I think there's absolute challenges in being able to represent a heavily Democratic district that I'm so proud to be able to represent, and the realities of the North Carolina General Assembly, where we have a supermajority in the North Carolina Senate, a Republican supermajority, and essentially one vote away from a supermajority in the state house. So it does create a very, very challenging environment. But I've been in the minority since I've got to the North Carolina Senate, Zach, and I'll be honest with you, we've been able to become one of the most effective legislators in the North Carolina General Assembly. We've been able to pass critical legislation related to police accountability and justice system. We've been able to work on some great prescription drug transparency bills, bringing down the cost of healthcare, Medicaid expansion now. We continue to advance. I think the reality is what I try to do a good job and understand is that everybody in North Carolina is someone that I represent at the end of the day, not just the people of Mecklenburg County's 38th Senate District, because there's 50 state senators, and our vote affects every single North Carolinian. So as a public servant, I strive to make sure that I'm listening to everyone, understanding everyone's issues. Doesn't matter if they're Republican, Democrat, or Independent. And I think that's how Democrats can also begin to see real gains, is when we lead with conviction, when we listen to understand each other and prioritize their issues. And I think that's why we saw Medicaid expansion finally happen, with broad bipartisan support. So I think both Republicans and Democrats, even in challenging times, can continue to work together to bring about change. Because I think what I try to push and try to get my colleagues in the North Carolina General Assembly to understand is that we are taking time away from our family, from work, from our community, to be in the North Carolina General Assembly. And our obligation is to save health and the well-being of every single North Carolinian. So if we don't come together to work together to create a better world for people tomorrow, what's the point? Why are we here? So I think if we continue to have more leaders to have those conversations and remind people to get out of your partisan bubbles and do good things to help people better their lives, I think we can continue to see North Carolina works for all of us.
Now, in Mecklenburg, it's obviously an incredibly important county for the state and for Democratic hopes statewide. If they want to win, Mecklenburg is one of the areas that they have to do well in. Now, some have said that during the 2022 election cycle, voter turnout wasn't where they wanted that to be. What do you ascribe that to, and do you think there's a right way to solve it and get maximum numbers out of your district?
Well, Zach, I think first of all, we got to do a tremendous job organizing. Like, we've got new leadership at the state party level. We're going to potentially get some new leadership at the county party level, the Democratic Party. It's organizing in a precinct level, block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, calling voters, knocking on their doors, showing up. As somebody that's an elected official, it is a immediate impact on voters when the elected official or volunteers that are not paid are standing at your door and telling you with conviction that this candidate, these issues are critical to you and your family, and we need you to get out there and vote. So I think we're going to increase our voter engagement at the end of the day. But I think more importantly, I think Democrats have to have a backbone. We've got to give people a reason to be motivated to vote, whether it's continue to expand access to healthcare, mental health care, being champions to make sure that North Carolina doesn't rank at the bottom when it comes to teacher pay or per pupil spending, but North Carolina is #1 and world renowned for its education system. Environmental justice, equity, and so many different issues. We've got to be able to be proud to be Democrats, Because again, these issues that we're championing are not issues just for Democrats. They're issues that impact everyday North Carolinians. And when we lead putting working families ahead of anything else in special interests, I think you're going to see more and more North Carolinians have a reason and a purpose and have genuine excitement to come out and vote every single time we have an election.
Now, Republicans in the legislature are not a huge fan of Mecklenburg County. It's kind of hard to get out the carving knives and split up your district. Just speaking about issues in your area, one of it has been the recent transit plan. Just talking about the transit and infrastructure, do you think that's an area that holds your county back from potential possibly?
Well, look, I think what's good for places like Charlotte, Raleigh, or Durham is at the end of the day great for the rest of the state. It's about being interconnected. We have the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance that has been supportive of Mecklenburg County Charlotte's transit plans. And it's a regional alliance. That means Union County, Cabarrus County, Gaston County. There's so many everyday North Carolinians that work in Charlotte. They thrive from Charlotte. That's how they support their family, their community, but they live in another part of the state. So again, I don't think we have a rural-urban divide at the end of the day in North Carolina. It's about understanding what is good for Charlotte. It's going to be good for Alamance County. It's going to be good for Cabarrus County. It's going to be good for Rowan County. And when one succeeds, we all succeed at the end of the day. So let's make these investments now so we can be interconnected as we continue to move in the 21st century.
Now, North Carolina is kind of on a knife's edge, really. It went from voting blue in 2008 to having supermajorities now. We talk about the legislature being gerrymandered and that sort of thing. All of this is happening while the GOP has continued moving further to the right. Not even talking about legislation, just as a political leader, how do you respond to an environment that has become so polarized so quickly?
So earlier, Zach, I told you, I think we as Democrats have got to do a better job of outreach and organizing, that's A, and then listening to understand each other. I think you have to understand there's all types of North Carolinians at the end of the day. There's all sorts of political affiliations and people have different ideas and backgrounds, and your environment and the way you were raised and the challenges you've seen and have overcome really makes you who you are. So I think when we get out there and we build our grassroots voter base, when we do outreach in rural parts of our state and our urban areas, when you give people a reason to get out and vote, to take time off from work, to even with the challenges like and obstacles that the Republican Party has put up to disenfranchise voters by reducing potentially early voting sites, or even bills related to reducing early voting days, or now potentially relitigating voter ID. We have to give people a reason to get out and vote and realize that if you get out and vote and elect public servants, not politicians, that you and your community will have a better tomorrow. So I think focusing on working families is going to be key. Focusing on expanding access to healthcare, focusing on making sure we have a justice system that looks at every single person in the same way. These issues are going to be able to promote everyday people to get out there and not only just vote, but organize their precincts. Organize in their neighborhoods, and maybe themselves step up and run for public office and realize that they too could be the solutions that their community is looking to.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue to what I want to close with. I could tell the pride was palpable in the beginning when you talked about your background, being Asian American in public office. Now, North Carolina is a quickly diversifying state, and we take for granted sometimes that it is the way it is, but if you go back 20 years, it's nothing. If you go back 40 years, in fact, it's a state in the South. It has a long history of not having diversification in its elected offices. For people, especially young people, who maybe don't always see a legislature or a government that looks the way they look or perhaps feels the way that they feel, what do you want to say to them about the opportunities that can be had and the possibilities out there to have an impact on government?
Look, I always say as elected officials, I try to make a concentrator for myself with people that have had worked on my campaign, people that we've had intern for us or work with in our office. You can't be it if you can't see it. It's a old phrase that I heard from Dr. Ophelia Gardner Brown, who's passed away in Charlotte, a leader and a pillar in our community. But if we don't give our young people an opportunity to see legislators that are women, governors that are women and people of color, then you can't instill those ideas and those thoughts in their heads to help them realize that, hey, you can actually be part of the solution. We've got to give them opportunities to understand what is a budget and how do you write a budget? What are some of the critical issues that have not only affected their community, but people that don't look like them, but have the same needs as us? And I think that is what a public servant looks at. What's not just good for me, not what's my next campaign or my next raise or my own personal ambition or my own gains, but how can I as a young person get involved to not only better my life and my communities, but the people that don't look like me, don't have the same needs as me, so that way we win and have a state and a country that works for each and every one of us. And I think young people have real solutions and ideas and thoughts because everybody brings their unique experiences to every type of work that we do. I think lawmaking is no different. So I would encourage more and more young people of diverse backgrounds, both men and women, people of color, to get involved and figure out how you fit into the political process. Maybe it's working on a campaign, maybe it's interning for a candidate or elected official, but really understanding how policy works and how you have an opportunity to literally change lives and shape policy every single day. And that's part of the reason why I'm so passionate, even though we're in the minority at the North Carolina General Assembly, knowing that I'm doing everything that I can to better people's lives every single day tomorrow.
Amazing stuff. Senator Mohammed, I want to thank you so much for your time and for speaking with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Viewers, this is another episode of Carolina 4 Interviews. Of course, we have plenty more offerings for you. You can check out across all of our channels. We want to thank you for tuning in, for taking the time.